Hello and a huge welcome to Market Madness. This is the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is like deadline day with myself, Olivia and GiveMeSport senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs, who you will see in a second. Oh, just right on cue. There he is.
Perfect timing.
Magic. Ben, how are you?
Everything is good. First weekend of the Premier League season. You got a drab draw, didn't you?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm so glad Joel's not here because Arsenal won and Chelsea didn't. So, you know.
But Arsenal were not that great. Man United were actually pretty impressive. And then Chelsea, with all of their goals over the summer, suddenly couldn't find a shot on target. Strange opening weekend.
Oh, God. I mean, the only saving grace is that Chelsea have West Ham away on Friday. So maybe we can, but then it's Graham Potter and West Ham, so who knows? But anyway, we have a jam-packed show for you this week. We are joined by former England and Manchester United defender Paul Parker. Plus, our latest summer signing, Paul Gilmour, brings us an exclusive interview with the referee who has long been regarded as the very best in the world, Pierluigi Collina, who is now the FIFA referees chief. And this week, you can also get involved and ask the agent. Later in the show, our guest is football agent and former player Brian Howard to give us a little bit of insight on how transfers actually work. I'm very, very excited for that. I feel like I've got loads of questions. So if you're watching, leave your questions for him if you have any questions, because when do you ever get the chance to ask an actual football agent a question about transfers? We're currently live on Facebook, YouTube and X. And if you're listening back in the future, then do make sure you're following us at GiveMeSport so you can see when the live shows are taking place and get all the news as it happens. And for more information on any of the stories discussed today, you can head over to GiveMeSport's website and make sure you're following us across socials, where you can also get your questions and comments into us live on the show. Right, before all of that, we'd like to put Ben on the spot. Because that's what we like to do on this show. Each week we give Ben a question to answer. We give it to him at the beginning of the show, and he has to answer it by the end of today's show. And that question for today is: could ex-Fulham goal machine Alexander Mitrovic be on his way back to England?
Oh, that is a good question.
Yes, I'm sure Ben will have the answer. He always does. And also, if you want to hear whether Alexander Mitrovic is coming back to England, then make sure you stick around until the end of the show. Right, let's get into it, shall we? This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. Right, let's do this, shall we? It's just 2 weeks to go until the transfer window slams shut. We'll, of course, have lots on that, as we always do on Market Madness. But first, a new season, but same old Manchester United, or were there signs of positives against Arsenal at Old Trafford on Sunday? Well, a huge welcome to former Manchester United and England defender Paul Parker, who's with us. Hi, Paul, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much, Olivia. Very good.
Good. Right, let's just kick things off, because actually, like I said there, same old Man United, but actually I think it's the opposite, isn't it? I know obviously it was a defeat and that's what everyone will look at, but I think this Manchester United side, it was pretty positive. Did you not think from Ruben Amorim's side yesterday?
Oh, 100%. They definitely were positive, and to be perfectly honest, I always believed that United were going to perform in that game because of the first game of the season at home. And it was a big club, a big game. And they've done that a lot over recent seasons. But they were just always just scraping over. They were just always last ditch. There was never any control. But in this game, they had control almost from the first minute. Went behind against the run of play, but then didn't panic. And it was it was just a good Manchester United performance. And what was missing really was the fact of they didn't actually come off the pitch with something. I'm not saying that they should have won it in that way. I'm just saying I'm happy that they deserved to get something out of the game by playing the game in almost like a Manchester United way. You know, there was definitely so many more positives than what there have been in recent seasons.
Do you think the difference maybe when you look at that performance was the goalkeepers? You know, David Raya made so many brilliant saves, and then the goal came from Bayindir almost chucking it in his own net. And obviously we know he's not Manchester United's number one. We know that Andre Onana is, but he wasn't there yesterday, not fit enough. But is the goalkeeper, do you think, still an issue for Manchester United this season, Paul?
the Manchester United issue of the goalkeeper would be the same if Onana was in goal, in my opinion, to be perfectly honest. I've been saying it for a good 7-8 months. It's a massive problem for them. And good sides that become great sides, which we talk about in years down the line, we always talk about a goalkeeper. And Onana is not going to be that goalkeeper behind a Manchester United defence. He just hasn't got that presence that, you should be fearful of knocking crosses in, putting balls into certain areas as a team playing against Manchester United. Teams just deliver the ball in the box. The keeper just cannot make decisions on what to do. So that was, and yesterday we saw that. We saw the goal. People are talking about, was there a foul on Mason Mount with Saliba? But I look at the keeper. The keeper wasn't positive. He was more affected by the white shirt, made more concern about that and what he did to football. And that was that moment. And that's the worst thing about it. They lost the game, which they shouldn't have lost, off of one sloppy bit of goalkeeping.
Paul, great to see you as ever. I want to speak about the forwards and how you think they're all going to fit in, because Cunha and Mbeumo have arrived. Technically, they're both 10s, but we've seen Cunha used as a 9, and Mbeumo can also lead the line. Benjamin Sesko is on the bench. You've got Bruno Fernandes, who loves a bit of freedom. Mason Mount, if he's fit, could be important as well. How do you think all of these players are going to gel, and what do you feel is Manchester United's best formation?
When you say formation, please not asking me to go against the 3 at the back, are you? And to be fair, that worked quite. I thought De Ligt was brilliant. It suited him. He was brilliant yesterday. De Ligt hardly made it. Well, I can't think of anything that stands out in my head where he made a mistake. But when you talk up front, Cunha and then Bueno were absolutely brilliant. Cunha was incredible, and his performance there and the way he played was like when he was at Wolves. He seems to love those runs, those lung-busting ones from his own half. That one he done in the first half, and he just seemed to. You wouldn't have that was an incredible debut, in my opinion, that he had. In Bueno, you could see what he's got when he gets the ball at his feet and he faces people. He forces issues. Sesko, we don't really know yet. We need to see him in there with those two. But you say they are going to be the 3. The Bruno situation for me is a big one, which the manager is going to have to think about. Bruno in a side that's going to be effective. If he's there, he has to be one of the 3. You don't have him in that midfield. We saw that twice. He got caught with the ball, tried to do something, and Arsenal countered, and they just about got away with it in the end, last ditch challenge or whatever. And he has those moments where he suddenly feels he's got to take charge and try and do something and be the hero. And there's no need. He can't always put his cape on. It's not needed at the moment. Doesn't need it in this team now. There's a good 2 players were on that pitch yesterday, made a massive difference to the attacking side of Manchester United. I still believe they need a central midfield player. I think it was obvious. You could just see that difference. You're just a calming influence in that middle. I think Casemiro done fine, but he can't do it consistently in the game. You got to really slow the game down for him to do that. And you could see they needed something in there to make that difference. I thought Luke Shaw done really well on his side, but you could see it. You saw when his legs went, all of a sudden he seemed like someone put metal bars in his legs. He couldn't bend his knees anymore. So the strength of United yesterday was something which the club has been about Manchester United for years, for decades, is about attacking. And when you've got 2 players who play a little bit off the cuff, Cunha and Bueno, who can make something out of nothing, interchanging with the ball, you say to yourself, this is what Manchester United fans have been crying out for, just to watch. Okay, they got beat, as we all know, but everyone has to get beat. But it is about how you got beat. And Manchester United, the way they played, and now teams will be a little bit more fearful now coming in, the way they played. And that's the difference between yesterday and last season. I went to 3 games last season, and I'm putting still those 3 games in my top 10 worst ever performances I've seen at Old Trafford since I left there in '96.
That's unbelievable. I think fans will agree. And even Ruben Amorim said that it was the worst season ever. in the Premier League, and statistically he was right. Just finally from me, Paul, specifically on the midfield, which you touched upon a moment ago, we know Manchester United tried to show great ambition in the market and signed Carlos Baleba, but Brighton said not for sale. Some suggestions that Adam Wharton could be on their radar now. Who do you think, if it isn't to be Baleba this summer, would be the right fit to solve Manchester United's problems in the centre of the park?
Well, you meant I like Adam Ward. I like Walden. I think he's a really, really good player. He's a good runner of the ball as well. He's willing to run with the ball. He's willing to run without the ball. He has got a pass in him, but he's got a presence as well in there. You know he's there as a focal point you look for. And that's what it was when I played for Manchester United. There was players, and virtually the boss just come out and said, if they're calling for the ball, you give it to them. You don't mind that. It makes your mind, it makes your game easy. And that's what they need at this moment in time. I mentioned a player. I talked to someone about a player a couple of months back when his name came up that he wanted to come back. Talking about him coming back to the UK was Douglas Luiz, proven at Aston Villa, fantastic at Aston Villa. And it seems like he might be in his way to Forest. That's a great signing for Nottingham Forest, if that's true. And someone like him would have been good for Manchester United. Just as someone just steady. Doesn't have to be, we're talking 9, 10, whatever years. It's just someone at this moment to help a side get back to almost the levels what they should be to then compete to win league titles. But they definitely need it. Hopefully they can get something before the start of the season, or it's going to be another concern. That centre of midfield is going to be a problem. They need at least one of the two, a goalkeeper or a central midfield player.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly, Paul, before we let you go, based off of that performance, obviously we say positive signs. Where have you got Man United finishing? Obviously, no Europe, which will definitely help. So, do you reckon top 6? Do you reckon maybe break into the top 4?
No, I turn around and I've said it. I'm saying at Manchester United, I'm saying top 8.
Okay.
In the top 8. Top 8 will could give you Europe with all what's going on now. You could end up with so many teams going into the Champions League. They need to change the name of that because you can't call it that. But by the fact of, there's only a few champions in there. But I think you still got to be realistic that where they finished 15th to suddenly start talking Champions League. If that was to happen, then do we talk about Manchester United being great? Or do we worry that there's something wrong with the league if a team can go from 15th and go and nick a top 4 spot? So I think I'm being realistic and saying top 8 judge. But that was pre the performance yesterday, of course. Now everyone would jump on and say a bit more, but I'm still being realistic. That was good. They're still good. There's only at the moment there's only a few players that they've got. They've got numbers, but they still haven't got decent players in below. They've still got a few sour apples there as well. So while things are running well after that performance, good. It's when they flip a bit. Can those players who haven't been doing it over recent season can actually pull something out the bag and deliver? So I think top 8 for me, at the bottom side of the 8, of course, I think that's about where United will finish.
I mean, Paul, you mentioned sour apples. Don't worry, because I think Chelsea are going to be on hand to take one of them off your hands in Alejandro Garnacho whenever that may happen between now and the end of the season. But thank you so much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers,
Thank you
Paul.
very much, Olivia. Cheers. Cheers, Ben.
Right. I think Right, I was about to say, I think we've got some breaking news, do we? There he is, Mr. Ben Jacobs. What have we got, Ben?
Yeah, a bit of breaking news, and this relates to Brentford, and it might be bad news for Yoane Wissa. So my understanding is that Brentford have cooled their interest in signing Arsenal's Leandro Trossard, even though there was a genuine inquiry made in the last few weeks. There's 2 reasons. The first is that Dango Ouattara has arrived. He's seen as a Brian Mbeumo replacement, but he can play over on that left-hand side. And the second is price. Arsenal would be prepared to sanction a Trossard exit, but they're looking to try and get back similar money to they made when they signed him a couple of years ago. So a fee in the region of £27 million, and that's too expensive for Brentford. Why is it bad news for Yoane Wissa? Because the first point that I just made, that Dango Ouattara is said to be, by Brentford sources, a replacement for Brian Mbeumo. So even though Wissa feels he's going to get his move, and even though Newcastle are expected to start negotiations this week again to try and sign him, it's not as simple as Ouattara in, Wissa out. Newcastle get Wissa, Liverpool then have the door unlocked for Alexander Isak. In fact, Brentford sources are saying two things to me this morning. Number one, that if Wissa is to go, they want as high as £60 million, and Newcastle's valuation is much closer to 35 million. But number two, if they don't find this number 9, they're quite prepared to still block his move. So it's another change of position. The player will not be happy by this development. So let's see what the week brings, because of course it's that time of the transfer window where you get a fair amount of games. But Brentford are really clear this morning that it's not as simple as Ouattara comes in, and therefore Wissa can just freely go to Newcastle United. There's a few more steps needed if that move, which is still on, is to materialise in the coming 7 days or so.
Ooh, poor Yoane Wissa, he's not going to be happy with that, is he? He's desperate for a move.
Yeah.
All right, okay, sticking with the transfer theme and having posed on the pitch with his GiveMeSport scarf above his head, we are now joined by the newest member of our squad. It is our new signing, Paul Gilmour. Paul, I can currently see you're on mute, so I hope you're going to take yourself off that before you start.
There we go, off mute. Hello.
Morning, Paul.
Morning, how is everyone?
Yeah, a bit there after Chelsea's result yesterday, but we move.
Yeah, stubborn Crystal Palace yesterday. They do what they've been doing recently. Very difficult to beat, weren't they?
Yeah,
some kind of interesting results. We'll get into that in a moment. But Paul, I'm keen to get your thoughts, because I know you're closely across Brentford and Tottenham as well, who did have a great win. But maybe let's just get your reaction to the news that I just broke, which is that Yoane Wissa is obviously hoping for this move to Newcastle United and to go and play Champions League football. Clearly, it's a possibility. But my understanding is that Brentford do not see Dango Ouattara as a Wissa replacement. And actually, that fills the Mbeumo void, which means it's not going to be as simple as Wissa might hope to just trot along to Newcastle in the next day or two. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, Ben, exactly that. I think Brentford still want to try and bring in a Wissa replacement, somebody who can play through the middle, can play in a central role. And, unless they get that person in, then it'll be very difficult for them to sanction a deal for Wissa. Add to the fact that negotiations are always a bit more complicated with somebody of this age. He is 29 in September, so the buying club naturally these days a bit more reluctant to spend too big on somebody with that kind of age profile in the Premier League. And again, it comes down to the deeper we go in the transfer window, just how desperate clubs get. And if you look at both Newcastle and Brentford, obviously Newcastle with the Isak situation, they will need somebody in. But with the Brentford situation, they've lost that game yesterday against Nottingham Forest. And, you've got Keith Andrews, speaking afterwards about being too nice. And they've gone through all this change in the summer with Thomas Frank and Mbeumo and so many of the other senior players, Norgard and Flecken, all leaving. And it really is the breakup of something that's been quite consistent over a long number of years, and especially in Premier League terms. So they're having to weigh up all of that. And Wissa is a 20 goal a season striker. He scored 20 in all competitions last season. So Brentford know his value and what he would bring to another Premier League club. But they are not going to be kind of bullied, is what my understanding is, that they will have to find a replacement first. And if that doesn't happen, and if price tags are not met and things like that, then it could develop into a kind of very messy situation. We always see this. We see at least one transfer window, a high-profile one, that turns into something that is quite unpredictable.
Yeah, I'm one of these people, Paul, that's just like, come on, let's just get it over with now. It's been dragging on for too long. Everyone after Liverpool play Newcastle on Monday night next week, let's just let it all finished. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, we'll see how long it goes on for.
What will we talk about?
Yeah, very true, actually. Don't know what actually don't know. Yeah, maybe we'll let it ramble on until the end of the window. Maybe that's a better idea. Now, Paul, obviously you've worked on so many deadline days and transfer windows. Obviously, I know a little bit about a tiny little bit about how it works. But from your perspective, if you just could give all of our listeners and people that are watching right now just a little insight onto how transfer deadline day works for you and like the craziness surrounding that day.
Yeah, do you know what? When I first started with deadline day, it was still in the days of outside the training ground, supporters gathering in the background, and there was always a good fun atmosphere around the place and a lot of laughs, and it was very much entertainment along with it made the kind of long day go in a bit quicker, especially if you were at a club where it was, you know, not much was happening and it was quite quiet on the transfer front. And then of course we kind of moved inside after one infamous deadline that everyone remembers, and I think
I have a feeling people might know what you're talking about, Paul, without having to say anything.
and then we kind of went inside the training grounds, our stadium. So it was it was very great. It was a great experience whenever the club you were at was busy, because things were moving all the time. You couldn't switch off. You were scared to go get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or just because things were moving all the time. So yeah, that was fairly frantic.
Yeah, I can imagine. And this window every day has felt like deadline day, which is kind of good. Justifies our tagline on Market Madness. So, speaking of clubs that might go all the way to deadline day, let's talk about Spurs, Paul. First of all, the game itself. Mohamed Kudus 2 assists, Richarlison 2 fantastic finishes. What did you make of Thomas Frank's start to the season?
Yeah, as expected, I think Thomas Frank will bring very much what eventually, you know, long term, he will bring what he brought to Brentford, and that is a clear plan. I've been fortunate to watch a couple of Thomas Frank's training sessions when he was at Brentford, and I was always struck by just how engaged the players were, how intense the sessions were, how hands-on he was as a coach as well. You know, if the drill wasn't quite working right, he was stopping it until it, you know, they did get it right. There were just those, I guess we see it in most football training grounds, though. It was just a really kind of he's somebody who just commands attention from his players. He knows how to do that, and he knows how to get everyone working together as a team. And that is something that Tottenham were missing in the league last season, clearly, because of the league position and how many defeats they had. It's something that it didn't surprise me just how well they've started, albeit it was a good one to start with respect to Burnley, to have a newly promoted club at home. The real test will be in some of the tougher matches. In fact, there's one next weekend against Manchester City, and even that one's intriguing to me, because Thomas Frank's Brentford always did okay, didn't they, against Man City? They did well in stopping the service to Haaland, and obviously this is now a different Manchester City team. But yeah, all in all, I think the Spurs are going to be much more of a competitive animal this season under Thomas Frank.
And of course, to become that competitive animal, they may make a few big signings, particularly in attack. I know there's some suggestion of a left-sided centre-back as well, but the ones that people really want an update on are Eberici Eze, which was close before the Chelsea game, but then he started, and I think Oliver Glasner doubled down post-match and said he'll play in the UEFA Conference League as well. And then Savinho. So it looks like, Paul, Spurs' intent is to try and add a number 10 and a left winger before the window shuts. What's the latest?
Exactly. They want to add to those forward areas. And in the case of Eze, and I think Eze is the one that everybody's really getting excited about if you're a Tottenham supporter or you're associated with the club, because you look at the ability and just what he's done, and he's added that consistency to his game in the last couple of seasons as well. And we saw a glimpse of it yesterday with the free kick that was disallowed as well. So I think he's one of those real statement signings, an exciting signing. And yeah, the talks by all accounts from what we're hearing are continuing very positively, and there could be movement. Now, of course, Oliver Glasner's talking about him playing in Europe. It's only natural that he will want him playing as many games for Crystal Palace as possible. So it is in Tottenham's interest to kind of get that deal done as quickly as possible. That's what they're working towards. But of course, if it doesn't and it continues to kind of drag along, Eze will continue to play, and that always comes with the associated risks of, injury and things like that. But certainly Eze is the one that I guess most Tottenham fans are talking about, and those talks are continuing and will continue this week.
Yeah, I think Eze is the perfect example of how you should act when you feel like you may be switching clubs. I think certain players could maybe take note of that, because he said he wasn't expecting to be in the squad, and then he was in the squad and he was absolutely unbelievable yesterday. Like, he just, every touch. And I think for the money that they're talking about, around the 50-60 million mark, is an absolute steal for Eberechi Eze. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think Spurs fans would have loved that if that free kick had stood yesterday. Can you imagine that? They'd have been celebrating that loads, wouldn't they? I mean, as for Chelsea, I think I always thought the Club World Cup may start to catch up on us maybe sort of February, March time, but it felt like something was just off yesterday. And I don't know whether that was that Crystal Palace they're just a well-drilled machine under Oliver Glasner. They're not the sort of team that you're going to score 3, 4, 5 goals past. But I don't know about you, Paul. I don't know if you watched the game. It just felt like something was off with the Chelsea team, especially after what you've seen at the Club World Cup and the couple of pre-season games we played. And I suppose the question is Alejandro Garnacho the answer? Because it looks like that in the next couple of weeks that he might be a Chelsea player.
Well, this was one of the issues from last season about how to break down a team that, and you have to say, Crystal Palace were so good defensively yesterday. They were well drilled, disciplined. They had a real desire to defend as well, and that obviously makes it difficult. It was a really tough opening game for Chelsea. So I guess I'd be more worried for Chelsea if that was a continuing theme over the next couple of weeks. I think it's almost a difficult one, I think, to look at as, in isolation, because Palace have been a really good side, and you saw it the week before against Liverpool in the Community Shield, and I think last season as well. So they were a really difficult side to break down, but ultimately that's what some of Chelsea's transfer business was geared towards this summer, to try and be able to kind of break down teams that are defending. I'm not saying Palace were parking the bus, to use Jose Mourinho's phrase, or anything like that, but they just had a real desire to defend, and were really a well-drilled, organised team. So maybe if that forms a bit of a pattern over the next couple of weeks, maybe it's a problem. But yeah, it's I think, judging by the number of people that had 3 Chelsea attackers in their fantasy teams this week, everyone thought that they were going to continue. Yeah, sorry about that. Everyone thought they were going to blow teams away like they did over the summer, and that statement PSG resulted in some of the friendlies. But yeah, let's see. I think it's one of those ones. Don't panic yet from a Chelsea perspective, but it might be that they've simply come up against a really tough opposition on the opening day.
Yeah, I think that is probably the case, but it's just still a little bit frustrating. I think, especially with the game being at home. I think you always want to sort of win your home games against teams like that. You mentioned FPL, and we will get onto that in just a second. But I just want to finally ask you, just on the weekend's action, about Sunderland, because I mean, their first game back in the top flight since 2017, and their fans must have been absolutely loving that at their ground on Saturday, because I didn't expect them to beat West Ham. But is it that West Ham were really bad, or Sunderland were really good, or a bit of both, do you think? But what a day it was for them.
Yeah, just the perfect return to the Premier League, wasn't it? And especially when they, it's much publicised how many signings they've made, and maybe some comparisons to other clubs in recent years. Nottingham Forest, for example, come to mind, where you do overhaul almost an entire team and try and make changes to try and obviously break this run of newly promoted teams being relegated again and going straight back down. Well, Sunderland, we all know that, what a passionate fan base they have. Again, I would put them in that category with Leeds, of having a stadium that is really passionate and enthusiastic about a day like yesterday. So they were always going to be up for it. I'd be more worried for West Ham, and to have a result like that on the first day. Yes, it's not easy going to a team like Sunderland, who are really up for it, and did show that in their performance. But I also think there was an element of maybe West Ham are struggling and will struggle this season. I think, again, it remains to be seen. But that's a quite a worrying result for them. But Sunderland, I guess, take nothing away from them. They were motivated. They were, they used the crowd to their advantage and, got the crowd up, and all of those things help. So, yeah, brilliant result. And they seem to have got that sort of blend right, albeit after only one game. But they some of the new signings look sharp. They look like they were really smart signings.
Yeah, absolutely. I fear, though, I have to say, for West Ham United, but fantastic atmosphere at the Stadium of Light. So, speaking of Sunderland, and to finish, Paul, stop me when you know what I'm speaking about. Ballard, 17. Ronaldo, 6. Richarlison, 13. Dubravka, 2. And that was a bench. But then I took a little look, and it turns out that a certain somebody with a team name, Gilmour, had played a bench boost, which means all of those points counted.
Oh, my word.
Don't you, Paul? You got 109 points in game week 1, and you top the Market Madness League. And as impressively, you are 197 in the entire country out of 10 million players.
Yeah, I was going to stop you quite early. I knew what you were talking about, but I just wanted to hear all of that.
I can give you the starting 11 as well. Dels, Cucurella, Van der Ven, Milenkovic, Gakpo, Renders, Palmer, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Haaland, your captain, 26 points, and João Pedro.
That's a very good team. You've literally got basically double the amount of points I got, which is great.
Well, this is gonna sound terrible, but I was actually a little bit disappointed yesterday because I got quite high. It was like at 91 points, and then I had 5 players still to play yesterday, and I thought there's a chance to go, maybe 130, 140. But obviously the Chelsea players didn't do the business, apart from Cucurella, who got bonus points. But yeah, the one.
Don't get greedy, Paul. Don't get greedy.
Exactly. I won't get carried away. But no, do you know what the thinking was? I had such a terrible season last season, some of those leagues, that I thought, no, I'm going to be bold from the start. The second bench boost, that is a fact. That's a factor. So I used that quite early, thinking to myself, it's just a free one. And then, of course, Daniel Ballard, used to watching him play for Northern Ireland, so I hadn't but I knew he would be up for it, and
unbelievable.
He definitely delivered. So yeah, I think it's 4th in Northern Ireland as well, which I'm happy with at the moment.
Oh,
wow.
So, yeah, that's enough. That's enough gloating.
That is enough gloating, because I can't take that. I'm just like, I wish I didn't look at other people. Like when I picked my team at the start of the season, I wish I just picked it myself, but instead I'm going on Twitter and just seeing who people think are good picks, and I just get in my own head, and then I have the same team that everyone else has got, and I hate my team already, so that's great. But anyway, moving on, shall we? Because in a few minutes' time, football agent Brian Howard from Momentum Sports Management is going to join us, and he's going to give us some insight into what life is like at this time of year when you're trying to get a deal over the line, which is so exciting. I'm so excited to hear everything, what he's got to say about that. Yeah. And you can leave your questions for him in the comments wherever you're listening. Just write them down, and we'll see if we can ask as many of them to Brian as possible. But next, how about this? To Paul Gilmour's exclusive interview with the most iconic referee in history. All I think about is the eyes. It's Pierluigi Collina. He is now the FIFA referees chief, and he joined us for a chat last week. Paul started by discussing the success of the introduction of cameras on referees at the Club World Cup.
Of implementing the RefCam went beyond our expectations. Our goal, our target was to provide TV viewers with a new experience, to give them the possibility to see what referees see on the field of play. So it was a very unique angle of vision, but also for us to get the same info, to know what the referees were viewing, were seeing during a match. The outcome was very positive. We received a lot of requests, not only from football, even from other sports, with TV viewers hoping that the RefCam would have been implemented in in many more competitions, and not only in football, I repeat, in other sports.
What do you make of the referees communicating decisions across the stadium? Again, we've already seen so many videos of that in action. Do you think that is a positive step forward for the game?
We started with the so-called referees announcements of VAR related decisions after the World Cup 2022. So we started and we had it implemented in all FIFA competitions since. Despite the fact that our referees, the vast majority of our referees are not English mother tongue, and making an announcement in English in front of a big crowd might be something not easy. The outcome was positive, announcing the background of the decision. So not the decision itself, because everyone understands which is the decision taken, but the background, the reason why the decision was taken, I think is very good to make people better understanding. Then you can disagree, or you can continue to disagree. Nobody wants to convince spectators, but also the people on the players, the coaches on the field of play, that the decision is correct. But at least they know why the decision was taken. Implementing it in domestic competition, I would say, would be even better and even easier for the referees, because the language barrier doesn't exist. And we had some experience at the last FIFA Club World Cup 25 with, for example, Anthony Taylor providing a referee's announcement in English, which was perfect, really providing an add value, because everyone understood which was the background of the decision. So I think it's something very positive, and I look forward to having it implemented in Premier League, as I said.
And I wanted to talk to you about the football video support. Now, it seems to have now been a welcome addition to the game. I just wondered kind of your thoughts on how important it is to make that technology available to leagues and countries that maybe don't have the resources or even the finances for VAR.
You're right. VAR is a great support, is a great system to support referees, but VAR needs human resources, financial resources, and technology resources. There is no meaning to implement VAR in a competition, in a match, which is covered by 3 cameras, because basically is worthless, is useless. So there are many matches in which there are not enough financial resources. You have not enough match officials, video match officials in front of screens, and you have not enough cameras. The minimum number of cameras for VAR is 8, but you have competitions with less camera. So since the very, very beginning, we started thinking to something which would have been more affordable for many more competitions. And football video support, or video support, is a good answer, because it can work in competition without any video match officials, because there is nobody in front of the screen. There is only a review operator, which provides the referee with the images the referee requests to review. But also the number of cameras. You can use the video support in matches covered by 2 cameras, even 1. We have seen that simply by freezing the image of the main camera, you can see something and you can prevent a mistake from being committed. What has to be clear, VAR and football video support are 2 different things. So what has to be clear is the expectations. You cannot expect the same outcome with football video support the same outcome you have with VAR. With VAR, you have an incident shown by 8, 10, 12, 20 cameras. So you can see everything. Of course, with 2, 3, 4 cameras, you cannot see the same. Imagine offside. To assess an offside position, you need cameras positioned at 16 meters or even 5.5 meters or even goal line, to be sure. With 2 cameras, 3 cameras, you do not have any camera at 16 or 5.5 meters. So it's more difficult, and you have not, of course, the line drawn by the technology or even the 3-dimension that you are used to see in main competition. But I repeat, simply by freezing the image of one of these 2, 3 cameras, you can have something which prevent a mistake from being committed. So we have tested it in our competition, in some FIFA youth competition, and now we are making a new step. IFAB gave FIFA the permission to run this trial in senior competition, and we will have some starting second part of August, and we are confident that the outcome will be positive.
And the onus is obviously then on the coach to make a signal and
Yeah.
ask for a review.
You're right, because with the video match officials in front of the screen, they can recommend the referee to review. But without any video match official in front of the screen, the review process should start by someone, should be started by someone. It cannot be the referee, because otherwise we put too much pressure on the referee. He will be surrounded by players asking why you don't go and review. And this is not good. So we thought that the person entitled to start, to initiate the review process is the coach. The coach is, I would say, the highest authority during a match. He is the one who decides everything for the team. So he will also decide when to request a review, but he can be helped by players, because sometimes, very often, I would say, the coach is far away from where a key incident may occur, penalty area. So we thought that also players can recommend by twirling the finger in the air. This is the gesture. They can recommend their coach to request the review, but the final decision lies with the coach.
And Pierluigi, you've been very clear there that football video support and VAR are 2 very separate, different things.
Complete different things.
Do you ever see a world that that kind of review could work with VAR, or will they always remain separate?
The problem of video support implemented in matches with a large number of cameras without video match officials is the time you need for a review, for an on-field review. Because with VAR, you have already video match officials pre-selecting the images, the footages, which might be relevant to make a decision. But if you have a review operator only, and the review operator is there only to move forward and backward the image on the computer, all the images from all the cameras must be reviewed. And imagine you have 10 cameras and you need to review the images from 10 cameras. Imagine that it takes 1 minute each camera, then an on-field review would last 10 minutes. So then it would become a time issue. So VAR works very well with the video match officials, with the number of cameras. Football video support has a completely different objective, which is to provide competition with all the constraints I mentioned before, a technological support to referees.
Well, it's only right to finish on just kind of again, looking back on your career as a referee. Were there moments where you just stood inside the pitch and just admired what you were seeing, whether it was a piece of skill, whether it was a certain goal and a certain brilliance from a player? Did you have those kind of moments throughout your career where you just took it all in the moment and appreciated it?
Believe it or not, you are so focused on what is going on the field of play that the match for you is a sequence of footages, of small moments, and sometimes you lose the full picture, or you do not realize what really happened. So sometimes I appreciated the things occurred during the match afterwards when I rewatched the match on a videotape or on a computer. Because I repeat, you are so focused on details that you lose, I would say, the full picture.
I don't know about you, but I'm actually really jealous. And I think we can bring Paul back in now, because Paul, is that not like one of the coolest interviews you've ever done? Because I'm sat here being like, that's Pierluigi Collina. Like, that's so cool.
Legend.
Oh, that is up there, right up there, because he's such a famous. He's one of the most famous referees. He's now in such a influential position right at the heart of world football's governing body, FIFA, and he's so passionate and enthusiastic about what he does as well. So he's one of those ones where you do the odd interview, you sit there and you think, wow, I'm really speaking to this guy, and he is definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's just I really wish I want there to be like a time in my life where I can talk to him, because I actually don't know if I'd just be too fascinated by his eyes, but maybe his eyes were like more prominent on a football pitch. I don't know. Did you notice anything, Paul, when you were looking at him?
Yeah, you just that look that means, okay, I've asked enough of that question. I'm just going to sit back and listen. Yeah, that we've seen that look many times over the years on a football pitch. We just commanded respect of the top players in the world, and that's that is a tricky thing to do it in a consistent basis and work your way up to that level. It's
sort of a strange one, because referees are the one character in football that we don't hear from. They don't do post-match interviews. You don't even always know what the voice sounds like. And even that took me aback when we heard the referee announcement in the Chelsea Palace game, because you're like, oh, wait a minute, now I can put a voice and a bit of personality to their particular style. And so many fans think of referees as either good for their team or bad for their team. So when you saw Collina, Paul, in the kit, making all the decisions with authority, you automatically go, there's a guy that nobody messes with. And it's only after he stopped being a ref that you start to kind of see the strategic thinking, the intelligence off the field, and of course the wider personality. And he's actually not scary. He's a really warm guy.
Yeah,
and he's continuing that into his work with FIFA as well, and especially I've been at a couple of those IFAB events, obviously where they're discussing the game in detail and the rules, and he is very enthusiastic and passionate about the game and doing the best for it.
Perfect. Well, Paul, thank you so much. I feel like you GiveMeSport interviews have like peaked at Pierluigi Collina after like 1 week, but don't worry, we'll try and get you as many good guests as possible. And you can see plenty more of that interview with Pierluigi Collina, including his views on new rules for goalkeepers this season at GiveMeSport.com and across GiveMeSport socials. That was unbelievable, wasn't it? Right, this is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Some breaking news for you, and it relates to Eberici Eze. And what I can tell you is, as of this morning, Tottenham are still confident that they are going to sign the Crystal Palace attacker, despite him playing against Chelsea yesterday, and even after Oliver Glasner's comments saying that he will be involved on Thursday in the UEFA Conference League. It has no bearing, by the way, on Tottenham and maybe being cup-tied, even though a few fans have asked and maybe feared, wait a minute, if he plays in another UEFA competition, he can still join Spurs and play Champions League football, even if he was to be involved on Thursday. Now, what happened here was that on Friday night, Crystal Palace put the brakes on a deal for under Eze's £68 million release clause, which has now expired. And the main reason for that was not because of a major roadblock between Spurs and Palace, but because Palace did not have a replacement and still don't lined up. But they're in talks for Bilal Al-Khanous at Leicester. His relegation release clause has now expired and Leicester want £30 million. And the Club Brugge attacker Christos Zolis is another option as well. So Crystal Palace are actively seeking replacements. If they find one, they will sanction the Eze exit. Even if they don't, I'm told they will be understanding of Eze's desire to leave for Spurs. So Eze and Spurs stands as follows. Eze has agreed personal terms already with Spurs. He's also told Crystal Palace he wants to leave. There's no sign at this stage of an Arsenal hijack because they feel that Ethan Nwaneri can fill the role of number 10 and get some minutes there. So my expectation is it's just about timing now, and Tottenham will want to be respectful to Crystal Palace and their search for a replacement. But I can tell you in terms of fee, maybe not structure yet, but fee, the agreement between Palace and Spurs is almost agreed in principle. Steve Parish and Daniel Levy, two of the most respected and toughest negotiators in the business, but they are on the same page, I am told. And either Palace are going to get a replacement this week, and then Eze will be allowed to join Spurs, and we can't discount that happening within the next 7 days. Or alternatively, it might drag on a little bit, but Spurs still feel that Eberechi Eze will be their player before the window shuts.
Oh God, that makes me sad because what a player Eberechi
Eze on you though.
Honestly, stresses me out. Anyway, right, shall we move on? Because next up, have you ever wondered how a transfer actually works? Well, our next guest has experience of deadline day as a player with the likes of Chelsea, Barnsley, Sheffield United, Millwall and Reading, among others. But for the last decade, he has been negotiating deals for hundreds of players as a football agent and founder of Momentum Sports Management. I am so excited. Brian Howard joins us on the show. Brian, I mean, I feel like a proper fan here because like as football fans, we don't really get like the inside information. Obviously Ben does, I suppose, from the journalist point of view, but as an agent that's sort of almost like the middleman between like clubs and players, could you just try and sum up for me what your job is like on like a deadline day or like a day where you're trying to get a big deal over the line, and like what you have to do and conversations that you actually have? Sorry, I know that's a big question with like loads of questions involved, but I'm just well excited to hear what it's like from your perspective.
Well, I think market madness is probably the perfect way to explain it, or chaos. I saw something the other day. I think it came up, and it was in a day in the life of an agent. It's you wake up and you deal with the chaos, and you can't plan your days. People say, "Oh, what have you got today? What have you got over the weekend? Where are you this week?" And during a transfer window, you don't know. Things change daily, especially now at this point where clubs are back, seasons in full swing, games Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, injuries, poor starts to the season. Clubs thought that their business was finished, and now they picked up injuries and started poorly. Now they're back into the market for players that they potentially weren't. Players that maybe weren't on people's radar started the season particularly well, that are now gone to the top of people's lists that might have been third or fourth on the list. And probably you're talking about the Eze one there. They're waiting to sign players before they let one go. So we've got 2 or 3 of those at the moment where there's deals ready lined up to be done. But until the club that they're at bring in their own players, then you're waiting for the dominoes to fall in place.
Brian, have you ever, I mean, obviously the Alexander Isak situation is obviously ongoing now, and that's one that we've all been talking about. Have you ever had a situation where your player or someone that you're trying to get a move has then refused to play for his club? And like, or if you haven't, could you imagine how difficult that would be for his agent whilst he's not playing for Newcastle, trying to force through a move to Liverpool, but it all hasn't quite happened yet?
Yeah, with experience, not refusing to play. I think you've got to play. You've made your point clear. You want the move. Everyone's aware of that, but you've got to do your job. I saw some of the game on the weekend. I think if ESAT plays, Newcastle win the game comfortably, and ultimately you've signed a long-term contract there. You want to move, but there's different ways to go about it. Obviously, I'm not in that inner circle of that deal. I imagine that he would have been advised that this will get you out, and maybe had some conversations through his agent with the buying club to say, like, you need to do this. We have had players that have gone into training and said, you're standing in the way of my career. I need to move. I came in for X amount. You've got great service for me, but for my own personal career, it's a short career. I need to move. And we did have one player a few years ago that did go in, and it was very upset in training. And the chief exec had to step in and say, look, we need to do this deal. The manager wasn't best pleased, but then a week later, the manager left anyway. So there's lots of different scenarios to, probably haven't got enough time to go through everyone while we're here.
Tell me a little bit about the agency perspective, though, within the latter stage of a deal, because, of course, you can pitch a player to a club, you can understand the pathway for your player, you can advise them on whether you think it's a good move, and, of course, you can talk to them and negotiate the financials. But there comes a point, doesn't there, where the clubs still have to work it all out. So once you've kind of established where you want your player to go, what are you doing once the clubs are talking about fee?
Quite often you're in the middle between the two clubs. The clubs will contact you and say, we're interested in this player. Can we have him? What will it cost? You'll then go to the selling club and say, is he available? That's obviously the first one. If it's a yes, at what price? What does the deal look like? Quite a lot of the time you'll find the buying club and the selling club's valuations are quite far apart. We've had one this window, which we're in the middle of now, and the chief exec actually just messaged me to speak today. And they're quite far apart in their valuations at the moment, but we're there to try and pull it together that the selling club gets the value for their player, but also gives the opportunity for the player to go and progress at the new club. And especially for a younger player, quite often now, sell-ons are involved in clubs. So if you feel that the player can go progress at another club and then potentially move in the next couple of years, the club that's maybe developed him will get future money that they might not get if he developed it at the club that they're at now. So there's lots of different variables to look at in these deals. You've also got to look at the human side as well. One player we've got at the moment, there's a couple of clubs that are in for him. He probably wants to go to one club over the other, not for financials, for family reasons. There's been issues with the family, and he wants to be nearer to his family rather than being further away. It's a short career. You've got to put obviously your career in football first, but also you've got to put your family there as well. So these decisions come into it as well.
And then during a window, when you're dealing with younger players and you've got a lot at your agency, maybe they don't go anywhere, but perhaps with the window open, there's a little bit of leverage there, coupled with the fact that it's a new season. So maybe you're not just negotiating transfers, but actually new deals as well. Josh Stokes, for example, is a good example at Bristol City. I believe he signed a new contract at the end of June. So are there scenarios, Semenya's a high profile example at Bournemouth, where maybe a player was considering leaving, but actually you go back to the club and say, there's a way here where you can end that transfer speculation mid-window and get them to sign improved terms? And how do you handle that kind of scenario?
Yeah, so with Josh, it was always the long-term plan that Bristol City got ahead of the market, got him for a good deal from Aldershot. I think the plan was always to get him loaned out and get first-team experience to help him progress, and then to come back pre-season. Because he's done particularly well last year, we had a lot of phone calls, a lot of people knocking our door, a lot of calls going into Bristol City, and so there was a conversation with Bristol. Where do you see him? If you don't think his future's at Bristol, then we have opportunities to move him. But if you feel it's here, then I think we should negotiate a new contract that replicates what he's done. And Bristol are great. We've obviously got Scott Twine and Rob Atkinson in there as well. It's a club that we've dealt with a lot this window, and really good people. And it was really quite a simple deal to get done in the end. They said, no, that there's his uplift in his wages. There's stuff in there. If he does well and progresses, he'll be rewarded. And it was done within a day, that. And then Josh has come back. He picked up a little knock in pre-season, but he's keen to impress. Again, looking, he's not been involved the last couple. Again, so the phone's been busy. Clubs want him on loan. But we'll evaluate that over the next 2 weeks to see where he lies in the pecking order at Bristol.
And how do you think it helps being an ex-player as an agent now? Because you would have had your own agent. People have got lots of different conceptions and misconceptions about agents, how they work, whether or not the deal benefits the player, the agency, the club, and so on. We've heard all kinds of stories, and it's probably because every agency and every agent works very differently. For example, with the Victor Gyökeres deal, the agency said, we're just going to waive our commission because we desperately want the player to make the move. So 2 questions, really. How do you think it makes you better positioned to work in this market because you've seen it from the perspective of a player? And what's your kind of biggest pet peeve about how maybe the media or fans perceive certain agents?
A pet peeve is that we're the bad guys. We're taking money from the game, money that should be staying in the game, where quite a lot of agents now are ex-pros. So would you say that's still staying in the game? That's my perspective in it. You know, I've not come from outside the game with no experience. I'm helping the young players from my experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's probably a pet peeve, that we're just money grabbers. And I think, as I explained before, a lot of deals wouldn't happen for us. We do a lot. We don't just turn up, agree the contract, sign the paperwork, bank the money, and there's lots and lots of work. A lot of these conversations and deals that hopefully will happen before the deadline, these are conversations that have been happening since April and May. So there's lots of work that goes in. It's not just, you know, turning up, putting your suit on, having a picture, and then waiting for the payment to come in. There's you know, a lot of different work that goes in, and I think from having the experience as a player obviously helps. You know, some really good experiences in terms of transfers, some difficult transfers. And I think one, we spoke about the deadline day move. I remember being on holiday in June and being on holiday with my agent, and he got a phone call from a manager saying, we want to sign Brian. And he said, well, I'm actually sat next to him. So that happened in June, and then the contract didn't get done and the deal didn't get signed until deadline day. So that's how long a transfer can take.
So was that when you're involved in a deadline day move as a player? What is your thinking? What is that? I know you sort of just mentioned the move and where you were, and what's that like for a player and for someone like Alexander Isak? Say this gets to deadline day, what will he be thinking? Is it a good thing it's happening on deadline day, or is it bad? Would you much rather it just happen like way earlier in the window?
Way earlier in the window. Like, the season started now. You do your pre-season prep. If you're in one team and one setup, you've worked a whole summer to play a certain way. Then you're moving on deadline day, and then you're moving into a new team, new tactics, new coaches, new teammates. You know, you might not know some of your teammates. To go into a new environment and be expected to hit the ground running, it's really difficult. And then again, you go back to the human side. From my experience on that day, moving on deadline day, and these what players will have. They're moving countries, if they're moving to the other end of the country in England. You move it. What are you doing with your house? What are you doing with all your stuff? You're literally packing 2 bags worth of stuff: your boots, your shin pads, your running trainers. You're in the car, you're signing, and then you're in a hotel. And then you've got to find somewhere to live. You've got to settle in, know the areas, figure out what you're doing with your old house and your old life. And then you're expected to be training and playing and just on it from day one.
Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been so fascinating just getting like insight into how it works from your perspective, because I've never spoken to a football agent like that, and to know what goes on. It's wicked. It's so cool. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for having us, guys.
Keep up the good work, Brian, and make sure you check out Momentum as well. They have their agency website and their Instagram as well, so you can go and follow them. Their Instagram's great because it's got all of their players, and you can go back in time as well and see deals on their highlights feed. So that's Momentum M, sugar and mother. So Momentum SM, all one word, on Instagram. And their website is momentumsm.agency if you want to check them out. And you should, because they're doing great work.
I was going to say, you absolutely should. Right, this is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. Okay, well, earlier, if you remember, if you're one of our loyal listeners or watchers, at the start of the show, we always give Ben a question. And today we set this question for Ben. Could ex-Fulham goal machine, and of course he has been banging in the goals over in Saudi, Alexander Mitrovic, could he be on his way back to England, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. So the situation with Alexander Mitrovic is Darwin Núñez has arrived, and even though Mitrovic is liked because of his age and the fact that there are foreign player quota rules, Hilal are looking for an outgoing. And they actually told Mitrovic this before the Club World Cup, that there was a concrete possibility that they would look to sell him. The challenge is that his salary is 18 million euros net, and nobody outside of Saudi Arabia can afford that. So my understanding is that two things could happen here. The first is like with John Duran, when he went to Turkey on loan from Al Nassr to Fenerbahce. You might see a scenario where it is a temporary move and Al Hilal are prepared to pay the lion's share of the wages, with an understanding that a year down the line, Mitrovic might be prepared to terminate and leave, and the parties could end up meeting halfway. So a loan is a possibility. And much like with John Duran, there is firm interest from Turkey in particular. And Besiktas are the club that I'm told have made an inquiry in the last 24, 48 hours. As for England, scenario number 2 could occur, as with Damari Gray, who joined Birmingham City, where Al Ittifaq said, okay, we're going to allow you to simply terminate your contract now. We are going to agree a payoff. Then the player becomes a free transfer. And of course, Mitrovic on a free transfer would have to just take the wage on offer from the league where he wants to play, and his existing Saudi wage would not be factored in. The good news as well is Mitrovic has been there long enough that he won't pay tax on what he's earned so far. So if he does agree to terminate now and leave on a free transfer, he won't have to pay any tax, as was the case with Jordan Henderson. Now, Mitrovic on a free transfer, completely different kettle of fish. And there's several clubs in England that are alert to the situation. One, I'm told, is actually Birmingham City. Nothing yet for Birmingham fans to get that excited about, because the wage, the complexities. So it's actually been a bit downplayed by Birmingham sources, but they did make an inquiry in the last kind of 7 days or so. Let's see if it leads anywhere. I think there's relatively low confidence on the Birmingham side. And of course, Mitrovic will probably feel that he could still play in Premier League football. Leeds also made an inquiry before they signed Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Noah Okafor is the other attacker they're working on at the moment. And some will say Fulham and a return. What I can tell you is that Mitrovic is open to a Fulham return. Fulham have not made that move yet. But if Rodrigo Moniz ends up making his move to Atlanta, which he wants, but he played at the weekend and scored the late equaliser. But if he goes, Fulham are going to need another number 9. So you can never say never on that one. But that is more, I'm told, Mitrovic asking Fulham, do you want me back? And Fulham saying not at this stage. But let's see if that develops. So I still think Mitrovic to either Turkey or somewhere in England may be a possibility, whether on loan or let's see if Hilal come to an agreement and he ends up being a free agent in the final days of the window. And the last point to make on this is that if he's a free agent, of course, like with Jamie Vardy, doesn't have to be done when the window shuts, because free agents can be signed outside of the window as well.
Oh, I mean, the Birmingham link there, I think, is very interesting.
Yeah, I want Birmingham fans to get that excited about at the moment, because it seems difficult, but you never know. I think it's difficult because Mitrovic will obviously understand that the only way he's going to go to Birmingham likely is on a free transfer, because even with the wage coverage on a loan, I think that would be far too high for Birmingham compared to other clubs. And if he's a free agent, I think Birmingham's perspective is there'll be a lot of other clubs, maybe a little higher up the pyramid, at this stage that will be in for him. And then if they're competing against a Premier League club or a top division club in Turkey, might be hard to compete. So let's see. But Birmingham definitely have at least asked the question. So we could be in for an exciting end to the window as far as Mitrovic and movement is concerned.
Yeah, interesting. Well, right, that is it. We mentioned FPL a little bit earlier. I don't really want to talk about how my team got on.
Me neither.
We're just going to go straight past it. But obviously, you can scan that QR code. That will take you to our GiveMeSport FPL League this season. The code, I will tell you, is VNN P75. But obviously, if you're watching, just scan that QR code. It will take you straight there. I don't actually think I'm in it yet. So I think I need to, what I might do is just wait for a few weeks. And if I'm really bad, I'm just not going to go in it at all.
Good tactic, that is.
To be fair, I always start slow in FPL every year. And I always hate my team by game week 3. So
yeah, I'm like disappointed now I've heard Paul, who's leading the Market Madness League, because I honestly didn't know when I started. 1, defenders get a special new kind of points, but 2, these chips have doubled. So because there won't be many, if any, double game weeks in the first half of the season,
there won't be any.
There's no reason not to use your bench boost early. And had I known that, I'd have just gone all in to try and, like he did, get in the top 500 in the country. But I always like wait for like a double game week and don't use the chips. So next week I might play my bench boost.
Yeah, my bench isn't good enough right now, I don't think. I just had I think on my bench would have got like 6 points or something. So I'm glad I didn't use it. But make sure you join our FPL League, the GiveMeSport FPL League, by scanning that QR code on the screen. Right, that's it. We've had a very, very busy show. And this is just the start. Don't worry. Things really hot up in the next 14 days as transfer deadline day approaches. And we'll be back next week. Plus, we have 2 very special shows on deadline day itself, which is Monday, the 1st of September. Thank you very much, Ben. It's been a pleasure as always.
Always a pleasure.
That's all we have time for. We'll be back in a week's time, but until then, you can listen back on your podcast app of choice. Just search for Market Madness. For more information on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, head to GiveMeSport.com. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.